she'll be rising.
You're looking at the sprawling desert city of Phoenix, Arizona, ninth largest in the United States. And today, the temperature and the weather has matched the warm welcome that we've received here at Fairlane's Squaw Peak Bowling Center. Hello again, I'm Chris Schenkel. First of 3 spring tour telecasts coming up, and in our very first match, 2 great champions, Pete Weber against Marshall Holman. This is a fantastic area. In the mid-19th century, camels were brought here to traverse the desert. Then came the horses, and there are lots of them here today. But there are some special ones a little bit east of here in Baltimore, Maryland. For a report on today's Preakness Stakes, let's go to Pimlico and Jim McKay. Okay, thank you very much, Jim McKay. What a refreshing combination, A&W root beer and Fairlanes, and we're back here again and delighted to be. It's been a record-setting winter tour, and now this is the first of our spring tour events. Multiple champions, Mike Albee setting a money-earned record. And also, we picked up the 3rd member, a Triple Crown member in the name of Pete Weber, and here he is. Pete, has life changed at all since winning the last leg?
Well, no, it hasn't. It's just been a little more happy for me and my family. We enjoyed it, but things are still the same.
Do you have any problem getting up when you bowl against Marshall Holman?
I don't think anybody has a problem getting up against Marshall because he's such a great bowler. And today I get to bowl him the first match, and we'll see what happens.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Pete Weber. We bring in another St. Louisan. Here he is, Nelson Burton Jr. Bo, welcome back to the desert.
Well, thank you, Chris. Excited. We have 3 tournaments in the spring tour. We go to Fresno and then on to Vegas. But today it's going to be a very tough match, and I have a very tough competitor right next to me in Marshall Holman. Bowling's all-time leading money winner. Marshall Holman this year has only won about $17,000, and Marshall in some of the April periodicals, even into May, they're saying out of shape, out of practice, maybe even over the hill. What do you have to say?
Well, Bo, in the last few months, I've been asking myself a lot of questions, and would I be able to get back to the level of competition that I've always been able to achieve? And this is very important that I've made this telecast. I feel like I'm back. I'm on the road, and you know, it's looking good. I'm just happy to be here. I'm bowling Pete Weber. He's a great champion, but the way I've been bowling this year, I'm just happy to be bowling anybody.
All right, Marshall. A little more condescending attitude from Marshall Holman. Let's see if it works today. Good luck. The winner of that first match goes against the left-hander Dennis Horan. In the semifinal, it's tough Tony Westlake. And in the number 1 position, it's Harold Sullins. Now, Chris, the Fairlanes Open pays a lot of money. Let's take a look at the prize fund.
$150,000 total, 27, 14, 8, 6, and 5. And up first, it'll be the great champion from Medford, Oregon, with 21 titles, 2 Firestones, 2 United States Opens, Marshall Holman, his 97th television appearance. This is his 2nd telecast only of 1989. He was 4th at the AC Delco Classic in Torrance, California. Shot number 1, first match. Zeroed in early, Marshall Holman.
A little bit different attitude from Marshall Holman this week. He's a little more sedated. He hasn't really gotten upset with himself, and he has that fire in his eye again, as this young man has had it for the last couple of years. Pete Weber.
And the Triple Crown champion along the way with a Firestone, a U.S. Open, and this year a PBA National Championship. Here's the profile view.
Pete Weber, that high profile, 3rd step is locked, arm at the top of his swing, the good long slide. And he's cut the hook down quite a bit as you see him lifting straight through the bowling ball, and that's what is necessary for today's conditions.
He said
12 titles, 10 years a PBA member. And Pete Weber on the left line, leaving the 10 pin. Standing room only crowd here at the Squaw Peak Fairlanes Center. One of 111 in some 22 states here in the US of A.
Pete, cross lane, a little extra speed, 10 pin, no problem.
In championship play, they have met twice before, and Pete has won both times. But today's another day. Very warm outside. Should reach 100 degrees here in Phoenix, Arizona. But it's dry. And then Marshall is left with this.
The championship pair, the right-hand lane, has given all the players a lot of trouble in practice, and Marshall with the 2-8-10 has a very difficult situation. All he can do is get the ball over here at the 2-8, hope one of the pins will bounce out into the 10 pin, and not a very makeable spare.
So it's a disappointing open frame, 28 through the second for Holman, and he trails by 12 now. But watch these professionals come back. They have that great ability, after an error, to muster all the strength and skills. And especially this one. He has won $100,000 or more 8 times, 6 years in a row. Coming up high, actually crossing over, leaving the 3-6.
Marshall Holman, who has cut his hook down quite a bit over the last couple of years, drifts high on the left-hand lane, trying to keep the ball under control, leaves himself the 3-6 spare. Cross lane, he'll throw a spin shot at this. A lot of players like to cut their hook down by breaking their wrist back and throwing it harder. Marshall spins the ball, it grabs doesn't probably grab the lane, and it's a good shot.
And it is not a comeback at all, but back-to-back open frames. And that will not happen very often with this tremendous champion, Holman. Spare up for Weber. Third frame. That one's sliding by, leaving a wobbly 2 and an 8.
Almost the same shot for Holman, for Weber, as Holman had in the second frame, the right-hand lane being extremely tight. If you point the ball up towards the head pin, it breaks up in the nose or across the lane, so they still have to give it room and just hope they can get it back. Weber, once again, with a pretty tough spare, the 2-8.
And he, too, chops the 2 off the 8.
Well, what we're seeing, Chris, is a lot different surface friction than when we saw on our winter tour. The 16 weeks of the winter tour, we had a little bit different oil pattern, and when we come out of the next commercial break, we'll have the championship pair set up, and we'll explain that oil pattern and what the difficulty in front of the players for today, both on strikes and on spares.
Between the two, 33 PBA titles. The 10 standing on the left lane for Pete Weber. Fourth telecast of this year. He was 5th at Atlantic City, 2nd at Merritt Island, and of course won the Trust Corp PBA National Championship in Toledo. Nearing the midway point now of our very first game in the A&W. Fair Lanes Open in Phoenix. We'll be back. It's just amazing. 3 consecutive open frames for this great champion. The last dropping the 6 and 10 off the 3. And now that was in the 4th frame. Now here in the 5th, he has a 2-4-10. Though we've never seen that. Marshall Holman, 4 in a row.
Not hardly, Chris. The last time I can remember anybody getting 4 in a row open frames in the championship round was Bob Hanley when he bowled a disastrous 140 game at the Firestone a few years back. And Holman has opened the door for Weber, who is somewhat struggling, though. There's only 33 pins difference between the two players, 5th frame.
That was with a spare working, and Pete was shooting in the 5th frame. Now the crowd's starting to get behind. They'd like to see better fortune for both.
Pete Weber with that high profile. You can see the arm up over his head. He drives through that left foot very close to the foul line. Good turn on the ball, and he blasts out all the pins. First chance for Weber to get a double. 6 frame, he could extend his lead to 43.
Well, first double of our very first game here at Fairlane Squaw Peak in Phoenix.
The approaches have been a little bit slippery this week. You see Weber sliding a little bit sideways the line, letting that heel dig in. The result is perfect. The left-hand lane is the lane you must hit. The right-hand lane is the key to the championship round.
Marshall trying for that elusive strike. Opened with one, but ever since it's been downhill, he has left a 10-pin.
Holman coming in light and leaving the 10-pin. The 6th, though, just avoid the 10 and not quite knock it over. And I'll explain the championship pair oiling pattern after Marshall converts this 10-pin.
And Marshall playing to the crowd now, which he is so adept. Tremendous individual who is trying to take it in stride, but knowing the competitor that he is, Bo, he is not.
That's for sure, as you see his reaction. Breaks a string of 4 straight opens. Once again, the oil pattern in a championship pair is oil for 26 feet down the lane, and then it's buffed or pulled down to 41 feet. So the lanes are very slick. In the winter, we use 21 and 41. There's a big difference.
And Marshall now 3-6-10 on the left lane. You're looking at 2 of the 5 professionals who have bowled well enough to win over $1 million. Holman and Weber. Holman leading them all with 1,369,786. The other 3, of course, being Roth, Anthony, and Albee. Going to take a break and then return to Fairlane Squaw Peak. Marshall Holman on the right lane, leaving the 3-6-7-10. While we're away, Pete Weber with 2 strikes, extending it to 5 in a row, and taking seemingly an unsurmountable lead over a guy that's having a tough break today. This man. 5, 6 open frames, 5 of them Marshall Holman.
Chris, we go to records, dubious records right now. The greatest margin of victory in a championship round was Mike Durbin over Larry Lobb by 146 pins. Right now, Holman and Weber have a chance to break that record.
Yes.
Marshall Holman going at a 135 pace. If he'd happen to get another open, he'd be in the 120s. Once again, Pete Weber could be in the 240s. By far the most lopsided victory this year on the PBA Tour.
And we definitely have a winner with a few frames to go, but Pete Weber now is going to advance against a non-winner named Dennis Horan Jr. The Professional Bowlers Tour will continue after this message. And there is the crowd, huge, sitting in disbelief at the results of our first match. 215 for Pete Weber, 134 for the great Marshall Holman. Weber now to advance, and here are a couple of happy newlyweds, Parker Bone III and his wife Mary. We have an interesting piece we want you to see. Here it is. The Howell Lanes in Howell, New Jersey have been a second home to professional bowler Parker Bone III. A 5-year PBA veteran, Parker won his first pro title in 1987 in Seattle, Washington. There, he met Mary Harlow at a Pro-Am tournament. Last Saturday, they married at Howell Lanes.
I came down here, I started bowling when I was 8 years old. Started bowling junior league when I was 10, and I come down here all the time whenever I'm home. And then I acquired a pro shop here approximately 5 years ago, and from you can see to the bowling center. He remodeled a couple years ago, and just everything is real nice. I grew up here. I know every lane almost like the back of my hand, and now it's just real fortunate for me that now I can share it with my wife.
Parker's parents met at Howell Lanes 28 years ago, and although they married in a church, Parker and Mary decided to share the unique experience of marrying in a bowling center.
It's very different, but it seems only natural because he's a professional bowler, and I can imagine any place else he'd want to get married in a bowling center. This spends all his time in a bowling center.
Bowlers of all ages attended the wedding, including Parker's roommates, pro bowlers Don Janello and Jimmy Pritz Jr. Even in a bowling center, it was truly a traditional wedding. Following the festivities, the newlyweds were off to Phoenix, Arizona, where Parker would bowl the spring tour's first stop. So it's a working honeymoon. Parker finished 25th here. He'll be in Fresno next week, and the fans applauding the newlyweds, the bride and groom. Here's Pete Weber now, who won in a most unusual match, shooting at 215 to Marshall Holman's 134.
Chris, I think if my figures are correct, the lowest score ever bowled on the ABC telecast was in 1975, 131 by Roy Buckley.
And Pete Weber, opening shot, leaving the 10 pin. And Marshall just as disgusted and embarrassed as Roy was that day.
Well, Pete has made a ball change. He's gone to a shinier surface ball to cut the hook down, kind of looking for a better shot to the pocket on both lanes, and he was pretty close there. It looks like Spares may win a lot of matches today.
Just gets it. And this will be a hard-earned victory. Fair lanes open, $27,000 to the winner. And I'll tell you, when this is over, we'll all need an A&W root beer float. Favorite refreshment.
The brown cow, they call it in St. Louis. Now the lefty.
Now the lefty makes his presence known. Beautiful strike. We replay from a profile view.
Young man, 23 years old, four-step delivery, pretty ideal style, playing a slightly inside line, sliding right towards the center of the lane. I'd like to get off to a quick double start against Pete Weber as his wife looks on.
And Terry is joined by Dennis's parents. And then we can now see what he'll do with the 1-3, a left-hander, 1-3-7.
Well, the washout, he's using a shiny ball on the left-hand lane, Chris, to cut down the hook. He saw everybody having trouble matching up the pair of lanes with one ball. He took a chance, went with a shiny ball on the left-hand lane, and overcompensated. And now he has a very difficult spare, as you said, the 1-3-7. He needs to get the one pin over towards the 7 to convert the spare and stay even with Weber.
Here's the winner of the 11 Western Regional titles. His second telecast. Last year in his first, he was third at Miami. Dennis Horan, Jr.
The PBA broken down into 7 regions, and that's where players kind of cut their teeth for the big tour. It's kind of the minor leagues of professional bowling. The record for regional wins is 21 by Jim Maxey of Atlanta.
Pete Weber, who shot at 215 to win the first match. Strike in the second frame.
Watch Peter as he drives through. His concentration is excellent. He just keeps getting better and better. He's determined to be the greatest bowler of all time. At the age of 26, he's on the right track. He has a great record already. Triple Crown, over $1 million. And he's just really in the middle of his career, so he can only get better.
Running it out and doubling. This crowd now getting behind the 12-time champion and Triple Crown winner.
Dennis Horan, who has changed shoes. He has one old shoe and one new shoe to adjust the approaches, which have been somewhat slippery. He fouled on his first shot of the tournament on Wednesday, immediately changed shoes and has made a good adjustment.
Beautiful strike by Dennis Horan, whom we asked earlier what he did before coming out on the tour.
Well, I worked for my father. He owned an automotive repair shop, and I worked for him doing the books and getting parts. And I just wanted to be a pro from time 13, I guess. And I just kept working and working. And in '86, I decided to dedicate myself full-time to bowling, and it's worked out well. I just won my 11th regional title last week, and I'm ready to win today.
All right. Trying to double here.
He switched back to the dull ball in the left-hand lane. Just one experiment in the second frame.
Left to 7. There you see the parents of Dennis Horan, Jr. Very, very proud ones indeed. Supporting him here, Clara and Dennis Sr.
I keep telling Dennis Sr. every time I see him, he is too young to have a boy 23 years of age. He is a young-looking man.
Okay, we're in our second match, and Pete Weber won the first. Leads Horan by 22. We're in Arizona, the desert.
The championship pair at 37-38 here at Squaw Peak Fairlanes. 26 feet of oil is heavy in this area, as evidenced by the slide. Then it's a little bit lighter in this area, down to 41 feet, and then dry in the back end. Now here's the line that the players are trying to play. Pete Weber's right outside on the channel. Marshall Holman tried to play between the first and second arrows out to the corner. We have Dennis Horan around the third arrow on the left, and we're going to have Tony Westlake right down the track. So a diversified condition. The oil's pretty equal gutter to gutter, very demanding condition, and Marshall Holman has been so kind to join us in the booth, Chris.
Well, we've long been a fan of this champion. We match him with any in any sport. And for him to come here after that, Marshall?
Well, I feel I can certainly do a better job up here than I did in the lane, so, you know, it's nowhere to go but up.
That's right. Going for 3 in a row, Pete Weber. Earlier, we had a chance to ask Pete what his chances were of being Player of the Year.
Well, in order to be Player of the Year this year, I think I'd have to win probably 4 more times just to even come close to Albie. But I think I can do it, and it's going to start right here.
And he got started today by defeating Marshall Holman, who's here in the booth with Bo and me.
Weber with one more strike could open up a 42-pin lead through 5 frames.
Marshall, here during the tournament, you led 2 rounds, as I recall, first and third.
Yeah, I started out really hot. In fact, I shot 259, 300 my first 2 games, and, you know, it's just what I needed to get out of the gate fast after that tough winter tour. And then things worked out well on Thursday. Friday, a little bit slower, and today is something that I'll just try to forget.
Weber with a spare now in the 5th frame.
Marshall, I pose this question to you, considering the difficulty factor of the championship here. One lane very slick, the other lane hooking a little bit more. Don't you feel that Pete Weber, who's kind of zeroed in, has a game under his belt, has a tremendous advantage over any of the opponents he faces, i.e. Dennis Horan right now?
Well, certainly. You know, Horan is kind of untested. Pete Weber is a young veteran player who's definitely lined in, and I like his chances. He's actually playing a little deeper inside than he played in the tournament. His balls was hitting around the second board. Now he's playing around the 5th or 6th as Horan finally gets another strike.
Well, Marshall, I know we'll see you next week because we'll be in Fresno, California, the second stop on our spring tour telecasts. Racing capital of the world, $125,000 Fresno Open.
And the Fresno is where Pete McCordick finally broke through and won his first title, and he's shot tremendous scores there, and I'm sure the players always like the Fresno tournament. It's always been a high-scoring surface and very accommodating people. Now, Dennis Horan, to get back in the match, needs a strike right here. He trails by 31. Pete Weber has a spare up in the 5th, but Horan with a double could cut that lead to 21.
Looking strong. Another of the West Coast bowlers, Marshall.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Fresno. That's where I won my first tournament back in 1975, and it's always a lot of fun to go back. It brings back fond memories.
And 21 titles, including a shootout.
Yeah, that was a fine way to end 1988, I'll tell you. That was a lot of fun.
80 grand in a boat?
Yeah, unfortunately, the boat is no longer. I decided I wasn't going to get enough use out of it, so we sold the boat.
Okay. He'll take it. No, he doesn't have a headache.
Weber gets a good break crossing over. And when you see a player as tentative as Weber is in this match, even after winning a match, and as Marshall was, you know that the lane surface is very demanding. You not only have to be accurate, play the lanes properly, and have perfect control of the speed. It's Weber's job now to take advantage of the crossover and make it a double and get his lead back to 31. Right now, it's only 21 pin difference. The match is up for grabs if Weber doesn't strike.
And he has left the 3-6-9-10.
Poor performance by Weber in 2 shots in a row. You can get away with it one time in a professional bowler's tour. He was just fitting the ball, and with his power, he doesn't need to fit it, although the condition is demanding. Has left himself the 3-6-9-10, one of the most difficult spares we have in a game, and if he doesn't convert here, Dennis Horan is right back in the match.
All right, Pete Weber coming through when he needed to with that spare in the 7th frame. More of the second match after this. Chief Executive Officer of Fairlanes Incorporated, 111 bowling establishments, including 16 in this area.
A wonderful operation is Fairlanes, and they have hosted PBA tournaments for almost 20 years now. Now, Dennis Horan, who has trailed throughout the match, trails by 21, comes up in the 7th frame, 2 strikes up. With a 3rd consecutive strike, a turkey could cut the lead of Weber to 11.
So the game is really on, and Horan's biggest shot probably of his career.
Marshall, I pose one last question to you before we let you go and head on up to Fresno. Do you think that the condition on the left side, looking at Dennis Horan just freewheeling out there, is the same as what we see on the right?
Well, the conditions are never the same on the left or the right. I'm not sure if it's any easier on his side. He seems to be making good shots right now, and Pete Weber looks like he's tentative and just is afraid to let the ball go. And I did that for 10 frames, and I was an early exit.
Good analogy of what's happening and analysis. Now, Dennis Horan can make it just 1 pin, 8th frame.
He does just that with a 4-bagger. And Marshall, good luck in Fresno.
All right, thank you, Chris. Bo, thanks a lot. I appreciate you letting me share the stage for a while.
Well, it's a joy to be in your presence.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, Weber has to regroup. He's really struggled in the 6th and 7th frames. Dennis Horan has taken that lead of his and taken it down from 30-some pins down to just 1. The match is up for grabs.
High hit crossing over, leaving the 3-6.
Weber now trails by 1 pin. If he converts, he would fall in arrears by 11 pins. And this is the 3-6 spare that we saw Marshall Holman chop. Weber has to be careful.
Right now, Pete trying to control his temper. And the fierce competitor that he is, marks with a spare in the 8th frame, trailing by 1. And he'll move to the left lane now. This is our second match. The winner to go into the semifinal game against Tony Westlake. And then, the winner of that game, the tournament leader, Harry Sullins.
Key 9th frame for Weber. If he strikes, he stays right even with Dennis Horan, and the pressure is on the player who can perform in the 10th frame. A 10. Well, one of his best shots, you heard the ball rumbling over the thumb hole. That's the ball rolling very close to the thumb and fingers as you see Weber's release at the foul line. He's sliding about the center of the lane, the 20th board as we call it, the solid 10, the 6 flies around the 10, and that was a key shot for Weber.
So a spare in the 9th.
Well, Dennis Horan in this position last night, the 42nd game in the tournament. The position round was bowling against Weber. Came up in the 9th frame with a chance to shut out Weber. He went and struck in the 9th, 10th, and 11th frame, shooting a 250 against Pete Weber and passing him up into 3rd place. It's a new day today. Let's see how he performs on this shot.
And the lefty with a 5-bagger, leading by 12.
I'll tell you, Chris, the left-handers in the last half of 1989 Winter Tour and on starting in the spring have almost been unbeatable in the championship round. Always garnered 4 titles, and Dennis Horan looks like he's very sharp, so it may be the season for left-handers. Right now, Horan going at a 2:28 pace. The best Weber could do is 2:26. So Horan needs theoretical 19 pins in the 10th frame to shut out Pete Weber.
He has strung 6 in only his 2nd national television appearance. This great regional player looking for his first PBA title. You mentioned Albee. Albee, by winning the ABC Masters, set a single season record of 238,000, and we're early in 1989.
Approximately 35 tournaments on the PBA's full schedule, so we've only gone through 17. Horan's going to be the winner of this match.
Finishing strong, this 23-year-old native of Santa Clara, California. We'll have that final score. Going to take a break now. It'll be Dennis Horan going against Tony Westlake.
Bo Burton's Bowling Tip of the Week is brought to you by Kellogg's, where you can get a taste for the healthy life.
When the 5-pin is standing, it's usually the easiest spare in the sport of bowling. And the golden rule for making the 5-pin is simply this. Roll the ball over your normal strike line. For me, it's the 2nd arrow on this lane. But if you leave something like the 5-9, a choppable spare, we need to make an adjustment. First, you must move to the extreme left side of the lane. Why? Because from the right side, you can chop the 5 off the 9. Now, take your hand and rotate it from the normal position counterclockwise to the backup ball or reverse hook position. Then take a shot over the 2nd arrow like a left-hander would do. The ball will fade into the 5-9. You'll convert this spare more often. Watch this. There you have it. When you leave the 5-9, move to the left side of the approach, turn that hand in the backup ball position, and play the 2nd arrow on the left side. You'll have more success with the spare.
With 10 strikes, a non-winner, Dennis Horan Jr. eliminates Pete Weber, shooting a 248 to the winner of the first game, Pete Weber's 214.
Chris, Alan Smith, the Vice President of Operations, wants to say hi to his mother, Marion, and Brandon, his son and daughter, Catherine, and you know the fellow on the rest.
Well, Stephen Friedberg, a longtime friend. He's Chief Operating Officer of the vast Fairlanes operation. Nice to have them out here as we look at the Kingpin standings. Coming to this tournament, Mike Albee, as you might expect, is in first place. Budweiser sponsoring a $50,000 pointless competition, which will run through the winter and the spring tours, which we're beginning today. Players finishing among the top 24 will be awarded points, and each tournament leader receives 10 bonus points. Who will it be today? Tony Westlake hopes he can shoot well against Dennis Horan Jr.
Horan, a strong 248 in his first game. Let's see if he can maintain that pace.
In match play, Dennis Horan defeated Sullins, Weber, and Holman, whereas Westlake defeated Horan and Weber. So here he is, born in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Now bowling out of Edmond. Very compact, very effective.
Tony Westlake, short in stature, 5 feet 6 inches tall, hits the line in just perfect position. Has a short, shoulder-high backswing, good high follow-through, knee bend to match his stature, and really one of the most versatile styles on the PBA Tour. He has enough power to play all the angles and move the pins, and yet he doesn't depend on a lot of hook.
All right, doubling here, much to his fiancee's delight, Mary Lombardi.
Scheduled wedding date, June the 10th. The action has definitely picked up as Horan has set a standard by which some of these other right-handers, i.e. Tony Westlake and our tournament leader, Harold Sullins, have to contend with. They need to get some big scores.
Leaving a 7-pin, solid at that.
Chris, while we have a little break here as he picks up another story, tell me about the horse race later on, partner. I have my thoughts. Houston, bet him across the board, easy goer. Should be the odds-on favorite, but Houston's the best money horse.
Well, I think he has a wonderful chance in that 1 3/16 Preakness Stakes coming up here on ABC.
Well, Dennis Horan, I bet you he'd bet on that, making that 10-pin 9 out of 10 times, but here in a critical situation, once again, a player who has changed balls, changed grips, loses handle on the ball and slides by and misses a simple spare. I still don't go along with that theory. Pro bowlers, as good as they are, as much as they practice, can accommodate and change their shot to make spares. Cut that hook down, don't change balls. See if Horan can recover.
Oh! That he did, with a nice little break at the end.
An interesting shot. The 5-pin will go to the sideboard, but watch the 6-pin. See the 6-pin? It's sitting over there in the channel, sitting over the channel, bounces around, and nudges the 10 out from the back. A great break for Horan.
And we have a little sleeper 8 here on the right lane, preceded by a 2-pin.
Tough spare. We saw Weber miss this in his match. And the right-hand lane being very slick, a player has to go straight into the 2-pin. He'll play this from the right side. Needs this to maintain a 20-pin lead. Oh, trouble.
Well, this is the most number of chops we have seen in 28 years doing this telecast.
I agree, Chris, and I'll tell you what, one of the reasons is that the oil pattern is a little bit different. The players have been bowling on what we call semi-short oil all year long, and by 21 feet of application in the winter, then 41 feet of pull or oil applied that far down the lane, this is a much slicker lane condition. The players are not adjusting for it on their spare shots.
All right. We're in the semifinal game. Tony Westlake meeting Dennis Horan, who previously defeated Pete Weber. The gloved hand of Dennis Horan, Jr., who is now about ready to bowl in the 4th frame with a strike up. He can take the lead. Trailing by 8 at this point. Look at that careful preparation. He trailed in his match against Weber, came on very strong. He is doubled now, leading by 2.
Dennis Horan just whacking him. He left a solid 7 there in the 2nd frame, or the lead for Horan is up there to 34 pins. Right now he leads by 2, can extend to 12, and by far does he have the best shot of any of the other 4 players we've seen in the championship round. I think the only person that could beat Dennis Horan right now is Dennis Horan Jr. himself.
Wife Terry. Joining the capacity crowd here at the Squaw Peak establishment, owned by Fairlanes Incorporated. A&W, root beer, Fairlanes Open.
Westlake strike up must answer this string by Horan.
3-6-10.
Well, the right-hand lane has been the key for the right-handed players. They've either gone high or light. As you see, Tony Westlake trying to adjust for the 2-8 spearing left in the third frame, makes a very slight movement to the right to get a little more angle of the pocket. He drifts up high and has left another tough spare, the 3-6-10.
All right, Tony Westlake, Edmond, Oklahoma. Why are so many top players coming from the Southwest?
Well, going back 10 or 12 years ago, there started up to be numerous match play tournaments every weekend. For example, Dallas Fort Worth would have 2 or 3 tournaments a weekend, and everybody was there every weekend, and that's how everybody learned how to bowl and became able to compete on tour.
And Chris, there's 24 match games, obviously every week on the Pro Bowlers Tour. This week's format, 18 games of qualifier, 24 match games, and then you have the match games of the TV Championship round. So a lesson well learned by the players from the Southwest region, as they've done so well out here in the Tour. Del Ballard, Ozio, Mark Williams, Westlake, among that group.
It's a 4-bagger. Well, and the boxers tomorrow will like to punch like he throws that bowling ball into the pocket, because on professional boxing, the IBF World Featherweight Championship, Jorge Paez defending his title against Luis Espinoza, harder hitter of the two in a 12-round bout.
Unless you've seen Paez box, he's such a actor and so entertaining in the ring. He's somebody said a circus acrobat. He does some strange things in the ring. He's really interesting. And then I watch Espinoza, who is from Phoenix area here. He's determined to win that fight. He's in the best shape of his life, so it should be a great one.
Now leading the 2-4-7 after a 4-bagger here in the semifinal game. Weber eliminated Marshall Holman first game, so Marshall won $5,000. Then this man, whose parents you just saw, Dennis Horan, defeated Weber. Weber leaving with a $6,000 check. Okay, we're in Arizona, home of the Navajo and the Hopi, proud Native Americans. We'll be back. Today it's the A&W Fairlanes Open. Here's our tournament leader, Harry Sullins, winner of 2, bowling out of Sterling Heights, Michigan, to meet the winner of the Tony Westlake, Dennis Horan semifinal match. Westlake, who won the Greater Hartford Open, 1988, then second at the Firestone behind Mark Williams. And here again we see a 2 sleeper 8.
Just guesswork for Tony Westlake on the right-hand lane. He made what I thought was as good a shot as he can make with the knowledge he has of what to do on that lane on that particular shot. The ball slides by and leaves a 2-8. What he did is he went to where he left the 2-8 before, put a little more spin on it, a little more lift, and hopefully it would have flipped over for a swisher. Not to be. Let's see if he can convert it this time, though.
19 pins separating these two professionals. Westlake ready to shoot in the 8th. He is trailing at this point.
Tony Westlake, who is a food service salesman that supplies schools, restaurants, etc., was begged to come on to the tour by his sponsor, Richard Altman. Most players have to go looking for a sponsor. Here, a sponsor begged Tony to come out on tour.
Getting late, so Westlake strikes in the 8th. Horan, who put together 4, then marked with a spare, shooting in the 8th. 19-pin lead. Lucky, leaving only the 4-7.
looks back at his wife, Terry, and says, where'd that shot come from? He had been starting the ball out around the second arrow. This shot is so far inside his mark, it almost crossed over. Breaks up the split. Almost left the 4, 7, and 10. Has the 4-7 conversion in front of him.
All right. He just joined us earlier today. Pete Weber defeated Marshall Holman 215 to 134. Then Horan eliminated Weber 248 to 214. Now it's our third game. Leaders by round.
18 games qualifying, 24 match play. Right now we're down to the semifinal game, 2 frames left. Our tournament leader, Harold Sullins, waiting in the wings. For Dennis Horan, he sends the ball wide, probably in response to the pull shot he had on the right-hand lane. He leaves the 3-9 double wood. See the head pin sliding by the 3-pin and the 9-pin. This is similar to the very difficult spare that the right-handers have had to convert, the 2 and 8.
Terry not watching at the moment. Okay, a spare in the 9th to lead by 15, but Tony Westlake has a strike up.
And the biggest shot of the match, Chris. Westlake hasn't really been close on the right-hand lane. If he can strike here, he can come up in the 10th frame and shut out Dennis Horan. This is it.
We just slid by, leaving the 2.
And when you see a professional bowler react like that, that isn't just disdain for the lane condition or the lane surface. He knew he threw the best shot he has with the knowledge he has. Here's an experienced player, has bowled 42 games plus in this bowling center, practiced for a half hour in this championship here, and his best shot will not hit the pocket. That's tough. The man that is recognized as one of the top 5 clutch players on the tour trails in this match by 15 pins. He can put some pressure on his opponent, Dennis Horan, with 2 strikes. If he doesn't strike in the 10th and 11th frames, Horan most likely will go against Sullins.
And there is a pesky 10.
It's going to open the door for an easy victory for Horan. Dennis Horan right now going at a 2:11 pace. As you see the 10-pin left by Tony Westlake in the 10th frame. The 6-pin just does not do the job over there in the right-hand corner. Horan going at a 2:11 pace. The best Westlake can do is 195.
And will the trend set early in 1989 hold up, as Horan has yet to win a title. Ron Bell winning his first this year on the tour, and Murray Lombardi to marry Tony Westlake.
I believe they're going to have $8,000 to add to the coffers after this game.
Tony disappointed when he won at Greater Hartford. He won 4 games in a row. But here is Dennis Horan. Needs 8 pins to win.
Gotcha.
Pin, and he has now won his 2nd match. Professional Bowlers Tour will continue with the final game after this message and a word from our ABC station. Okay, thank you very much, Al. The run for the Black-Eyed Susans coming up, and Dennis Horan is running for his first ever PBA title, defeating Tony Westlake 210 to 195. And the man that really can come up with the A&W root beer floats is Gil Thomas, Vice President Sales Development, A&W Beverages. 2nd year for A&W Fairlanes Open. And next week, Fresno, California, followed by the PBA Doubles Classic, Showboat Lanes, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Chris, at Cedar Lanes in Fresno, we've back there many times before, and the doubles is such an interesting format. And let's take a look at the tournament size. Was 157 players, and here's 6 through 24. Benoit, 300-man. Ron Palumbi had another good tournament. David Ferraro, Ray Perez, 9th place. Groff, Wunderlich up there again. Both steady players. Edwards, there's your guy, and Del Ballard Jr. has had a great year so far, finishing 13th. Rod Pasteur, the Playboy, and veteran George Pappas, 15th place. Score and Warren Nelson like to say hi to Brittany and Mara, his 2 children, John Odrobanak. Tommy Kreitz, Don Moser. Moser has only made the championship round 1 time. That was at a Fairlanes tournament. He's tough. Chris Warren, Figueroa up there, 21st place. He's a wonderful young guy. Ron Bell, who we saw win the Fairlanes Championship. Jimmy Pritz, the 3rd, and Ron Williams round out the top 24 places.
Okay, and Harry Sullins, the tournament leader, would like the $27,000 check and a magnificent trophy featuring a Hopi Kachina doll. Sullins. And the tournament leader comes out with a big strike in the first. Dennis Horan. 2 match victories here today.
Horan, who has never bowled for a title, although he is experienced in winning, as evidenced by those 11 regional titles in the Western region, has got a chance at the Big Kahuna, a PBA national title, 1 game away.
Well, we're all even after 1 frame in the championship game. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, where the temperature today is reaching 100 degrees. Ever-growing Phoenix. By the year 2000, they expect 3 million population.
My goodness, they might even have humidity out here then, Chris.
The Preakness Stakes, 114th running.
Get your money on Houston.
5 to 1.
You got it. Good across-the-board bet.
Take those odds-on favorites.
Dennis Horan for a double.
Okay, it's like an off-track for a thoroughbred. And what he faces now, the 6, 7, 10.
He's never bowled in the championship round. He's left himself a difficult spare in the early going here. He needs to get his ball over by the 6-7, over 6-10, and rise that 6-pin over into the 7. Count also comes into play here. If he'd happen to miss both the 6-pin and 7-pin, he'd drop way behind.
He's had trouble with the second frames in the matches here today, but then has always come on strong.
He's had strikes, as you noted, Chris, in the middle of the matches. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th frames has been a strong point. But here's a key shot. Every right-hander has struggled on lane 38. Harold Sullins, in order to be competitive, must throw some good shots right here.
And the legend, as he is called, leads the 2-pin.
Well, he took a little lesson from Holman, Weber, and Westlake on this right-hand lane. As you see his profile, a 4-step delivery with a delayed arm swing. Watch how he delays that arm swing, then pulls that shot through, and he super torques the ball. What do you mean by that? He tried to hook it as much as he could. He still couldn't get the ball to come back on the right-hand lane.
So it's a strike and spare for Harry Sullins, who's had a long wait being the tournament leader. Some people prefer that position where it's only 1 head-to-head match, whereas his opponent Horan is in his 3rd game.
Harry Sullins, who uses the full fingertip grip, fingers down to just the first knuckle, and uses the same ball almost every week. He likes the feel of this ball, and he adjusts it, the surface, either making it shiny or dull for lane conditions.
Great bowling year with comeback wins by Ernie Schlegel, by Butch Soper, by Charlie Tapp, multiple winners Randy Peterson and Del Ballard, Mike Alby's record-setting, Pete Weber, Triple Crown winner. Now a chance for this non-winner to gain 1. So after the open in the 2nd, he strikes.
Well, what we have to watch for Dennis Horan Jr. is he looking towards that first title? He has had a pretty good shot on both lanes, although he made a major mistake in the second frame on the left-hand lane. Let's see what he does here in the fourth. You think the adrenaline isn't flowing out there on the Professional Bowlers Tour until you have stood on the approaches and bowled against one of the best opponents in the world, basically any of the top 100 touring pros. You don't realize the pressure, and that's why those eyeballs get so big.
Lazy but effective, a double. And now trails by only 2 in the championship match. From down the way, you see some of the fans here, spectators that are cheering for either Harry Sullins, at whom you're looking, or Dennis Horan Jr. in our championship game.
Big shot, right-hand lane.
Okay, now he leads by 12. Earlier, we asked Harry how he got his nickname, the Legend.
Well, Bo, I acquired that in the Detroit area through some fellow competitors. It's nothing that I went out and tried to earn. It's just something that they bestowed upon me. Whether I get out here on a national tour and win, well, that's the idea of a professional bowler. My turn this week, it's one game, and if I get that third title, it's another step on that big rock.
Okay. A lot of legends in Detroit. Ooh, a 10.
Harry Sullins trying more power than any of the other 4 players in the championship round today. Leaves the 10-pin on the left-hand lane as the ball comes in just a little bit late, about a 2-degree angle of attack on the pocket that particular time. When you get a 4-degree angle of attack, to be a little bit theoretical, you'll carry that 10-pin out. Needs a spare conversion to maintain his lead.
Pete Weber won the first match over Marshall Holman. Then Horan defeated Weber. Horan defeated Westlake. Thus, he is in the final against Sullins. Double up, trailing by 11. Whew. 4-6-10.
Watch Dennis Horan Jr. that time come through. He pulled his head off the target before he releases the ball. You just cannot do that and be continually successful. All he can do right here is throw the ball over in the 6-10 zone, hope one of these pins bounces out and takes out the 4. The best game is to knock down the 2 pins, save the count, and hopefully throw some strikes in the middle of the match.
All right, second open frame. First one was in the second. His parents and wife watching.
One of the biggest mistakes any player will make under pressure, especially somebody who has never won before, is they get looking up from their spot before they release the ball. It was very obvious in Dennis Horan's last shot. He wanted that strike to get the match down to just 1 pin, pulled his head off his target, pulled the ball to the right of his target. The disastrous split. Now he trails by 26, 6 frame.
All right, 23-year-old let you know how he felt about that shot. Wide World Next Special Edition. Kentucky Derby winner Sunday Silence goes for 2 in a row, and the second jewel of the Chrysler Triple Crown Challenge in the Preakness Stakes.
I will not miss that race. Harold Sullins in the driver's seat, 26-pin lead, 6 frame.
A 10?
Well, a facial expression we've seen many times on the right-hand lane today. A professional bowler at the top of his game shaking his head as you watch Harry Sullins try to get that big hook working again. Overcompensates, gets a break, leaves the 10-pin, and not a difficult split. Changes to a shiny, high, low-surface friction ball for the spare.
Harry Sullins, who is in his second TV appearance this year. He was 4th in the United States Open. Last year, he was 5th twice. In 1987, he won in Windsor, Canada. In 1986, he won the True Value in Indianapolis.
And he likes Indiana. He bowled 2 years for Vincennes U in Indiana. That's where he got the experience to come out here on the Professional Bowlers Tour. So your home state, Chris, is represented twofold in this man.
Mm-hmm. The state's most famous bowler, of course, being Dick Weber, the mailman from Indianapolis.
A standard by which we can all try to match our careers. Harold Sullins right now just throwing balls, though. He just kind of chunked that one on the right-hand lane and the left-hand lane. You can see him breathing a little bit harder right now. He's belaboring like some of those horses in the Preakness will coming down that home stretch as these two players come down to the last 3 frames.
Okay, Horan trailing by 22. However, he has a strike up in the 6th.
Time to go to the whip, Dennis. You have a chance to win this tournament. Don't get fancy. Start your stretch run right now.
Now trailing by 12. Can cut it to 2.
One more strike, Dennis Horan will cut the lead of Harold Sullins down to just 2 pins. Horan would be eligible for the Firestone Tournament of Champions 1990 version. The only player that's certified eligible right now is the defending champion, Del Ballard Jr. Harry Sullins, he knows the crowd will tell him what his opponent gets.
Living the 2-4-7.
Dennis Horan, a little soft. He's looking. He says he's hoping that somebody gives him this tournament. You have to go take it, young man. Babied that shot. He had the right spot on the lane. He threw it over his target around the 11th or 12th board on the left side, but he threw it so slowly that the ball did not have a chance to hold the pocket. He's left himself a difficult spare.
Defending champion Steve Cook finished 68th. Mike Albee 49th this week.
Well, Chris, it's time for one of these two players to go out and take this tournament. Very seldom do you see two players just baby their way into the finish line. Right now, Harold Sullins is kind of protectively leading that, trying to protect that 15-pin lead, and Dennis Horan is not going after him. Let's see what happens. 2 frames left.
Sliding by, living the 2.
2 pin. We ought to know what pin that is. That's what they leave about every other frame on this right-hand lane. The 2-8, the 2-4, the 2 pin. What happens is the oil or clean conditioner is so far down the lane that no matter how much turn or hook they try to put on the ball, they cannot get it to finish the 1-3 pocket.
Bo, do you believe in hunches?
Yes, sir, especially if it's one of yours. I'm ready to listen.
We've had a lot of 2 pins. The second favorite in the Preakness happens to be Sunday Silence behind Easy Goer. So that's my choice.
All right. I think you got the 3rd place horse, but that remains to be seen.
Houston being number 1.
Well, I'll take a Quinella with Houston and the Easy Goer and see what happens. Now, 9th frame, Harold Sullins, 14-pin lead. Trouble.
Of course, we're waxing on here about the horses. They'll be in the Preakness Stakes coming up next. Special edition of ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Chris, if Harold Sullins does not convert this split, where he has to get the ball over here in the 2-4 zone, drive the 2 into the 10, the match will be tied to the pin. Coming in light. You see the head pin just tilting over the 6, sliding by the 10.
Great cameraman, directed by Larry Cam, produced by Carol Letty.
The match is tied, Chris.
Well, maybe we'll have a dead heat in the Preakness.
That we will not have here. If
No.
indeed this goes to extra frames, it will be a 9th and 10th frame roll-off. That scenario is definitely been put into place with both players going at a 190 pace.
Spare up. Reacting crowd.
Not so bad, though. He made a very aggressive shot, left the 7-pin, a spare that he has missed once today. Can't afford to do that in this situation, but he's still in the match. He'll trail by 1 pin going into the 10th frame championship game.
Difference of 13,000, winning or losing this one game. More important for this man is the title. It would be his first. For Sullins, it would be his third.
And both players, although the new schedule is not out for the Firestone, will most likely not be eligible for the 1990 Firestone Tournament of Champions without a victory. So might as well start the new fiscal season out right with a victory.
Reflections. Hope. Frank Ellenberg, our statistician today, from this area, inducted into the Arizona Athletic Hall of Fame this very day. Nice going.
And to get in the Hall of Fame, you have to throw shots like this. He sends it wide. Come on, baby. Saw that 5. Advantage has to go to Dennis Horan Jr. right now. Although he trails in the match by 1 pin and can take the lead, we know that none of the 4 right-handers has been able to hit the right-hand lane. Sullins would definitely have yeoman's task in front of him if Horan strikes here.
A 7.
Well, Harold Sullins, with his fingers crossed, has at least avoided his opponent putting him behind coming into his last frame. Horan, a pretty good shot here in the clutch. Sends the ball wide. That's where you want it. 4-pin does not do the job on the 7 with a conversion. He will have 189. All right, for 2-time champion Harold Sullins to win the tournament, he needs to fill 20 pins in the 10th frame, spare or strike. If he gets 19, spare a 9, we have a tie. If he gets anything less, Dennis Horan Jr. is the Fairlanes champ.
A 3, 6, 10.
If that backswing of Harold's had gotten any shorter there, Chris, he would not have had a backswing. He tried to aim that ball into the pocket. He must convert this spare and get a strike for a win. The spare has got to be the primary thought, though. Without that conversion, there is no next shot. What would I do in this situation? Nobody has hit the right-hand lane. Harold is nervous. He's thinking over. You know what you got to go with? I believe a shot we call the rocket to the pocket. Don't give up the head pin. Throw it hard and straight. It's almost a guaranteed 9 for the tie and send it into overtime. And still give yourself a chance to strike, because every time they've missed, they've gotten less than 9. Let's see what happens.
Now following the deep knee bend. He's ready.
Tie match, Chris. Tie match.
Well, I'm not surprised. We've had a little of everything today. Weber wins the first. Horan wins the next two. Sullins, the tournament leader, comes in. We've had chops. We've had opens, including 5 by Marshall Holman. And now a 2-frame roll-off.
Here's what happens. Dennis Horan Jr. will get up and bowl the first shot, first frame on the left-hand lane, like it is his 9th frame. After he completes that frame, Harold Sullins will come up and bowl the 9th frame on the right-hand lane and the equivalent to the 10th frame on the left-hand lane.
And as they bowl for $41,000 in this 2-frame roll-off, that's the total, 27 and 14.
Dennis Horan gets a pretty good break, sends it wide, avoids the nose, and avoids his split. Has an easy spare for his first shot in the roll-off.
For Dennis Horan Jr., 23 years old, this is his 3rd game on our live telecast from Fairlane Squaw Peak Lanes at Phoenix. First match for the tournament leader. And a 6.
All right, advantage now Sullins as it goes back and forth. Sullins with a fairly easy spare will come up on his what we call good lane here in the 10th frame.
Yes, next on ABC, 114th running of the Run for the Black-Eyed Susans, the Preakness Stakes from Pimlico. Live coverage.
Quick question, Chris. If they have a tie or dead heat in the Preakness, they don't go back to the paddock and roll that one.
No, they don't try it again. They just do a little splitting.
Not to be here. We've had our share of splits, but the money will not be split equally today between these two contestants. This is the equivalent of the 10th frame. The match is even. Sullins up first.
Double whammy on the 10-pin.
Boy, you picked that one out. He just saw it on it. I like the word you said, Chris. Double hammer. He sends the 6-pin into it, and here comes the head pin around. See you later. Hit him high and low.
Ooh.
Boy, he knows he caught it all. To take the lead, at least momentarily, Harold Sullins needs a strike.
Preakness next, don't forget, since we're running over.
Our statistician, Frank Ellenberg, just turned to me after Harold Sullins left that 10-pin. He says, you know what? It could be another tie. If Sullins makes a spare, he will have 40 for his 9th and 10th frame. Now, Dennis Horan Jr., to win in the roll-off, needs a strike on both the next 2 balls. He needs a strike and a spare to tie. Anything less, Harold Sullins wins the tournament.
What a heavy load.
But he must strike on this ball. There is no tomorrow.
All right, Harry Sullins has won his 3rd PBA title, the A&W Fairlanes Open in Phoenix, Arizona, in a 2-frame roll-off. In a 2-frame roll-off, a 2-pin victory, 40-38. His 3rd title, Harry Sullins. Wally Hall, Fairlane's chief executive officer on the left with that Kachina trophy, and on the right, Gil Thomas, A&W. It's a root beer float.